Drona Dewi is a mental health response trainer who bridges the gap for people to reach out to the right professionals if they find that they may have mental health issues. After her experience dealing with someone close to her suffering from mental health, Drona's mission, among others, is to educate and to normalize help seeking among those facing such issues. In this episode, let's listen to what Drona has to say in mental health, how she arrived at making this niche into a coaching business, while at the same time to answer her calling to educate people to be aware and kinder to those who may be displaying mental health issues. Ask the Boss is back again, and today we have with us Ms. Drona Dewi, founder of Drona Wellness and a mental health response trainer. Welcome to Ask the Boss, Ms. Drona.
Thanks, Sarina, for having me here today.
It is lovely to have you, and I'm so excited to talk about mental health and women who are involved in this profession. Let's go right into it. Mental health is a term which has gained a lot of popularity in the last few years, and I find that perhaps it may be used a bit loosely at times, but we'll go into that later. First and foremost, what is mental health?
Okay, so according to World Health Organization, there is a definition of mental health where when he or her realizes their potential, and when they realize their potential, they can cope with normal stresses and they can be productive and then contributing back to his or her community. So this is the definition that was given by WHO. But what I realized that, in short, if somebody is experiencing or enjoying their life, their good life, so they have a good mental health. But when somebody is struggling to cope with normal stresses, I mean, stress is part of our life, right? So when they're unable to cope with the normal stress, so that's when they are struggling or they are experiencing a poor mental health.
I think I prefer your definition of mental health as opposed to the WHO. Well, if I can just summarize that, WHO says that a person, if he contributes to society, he is fine in terms of mental health. But your definition is that if a person is enjoying life, that means he has no mental health issues, whether or not he contributes to society. So it is relative, isn't it? Whether that person is contributing or not contributing, it doesn't really matter as long as personally for that person, he is enjoying life and he finds a purpose in life and he's not suffering from, I suppose the clinical terms would be depression and all that, but we'll go into that later. Why did you go into mental health?
Okay, so this thing, I was named Drona. Okay, so Drona is actually a Sanskrit word that means balance. Yeah, so then I named my empire, I would say, Drona Wellness. Wellness to me, it's lifestyle. So I wanted to strike a balanced lifestyle. And I felt that personally, it was something that needed to come from within. So I had a very dark secret that I usually don't share it freely with anyone, but I wanted to just share it with you first, So this is my first podcast that I'm actually openly sharing about my grandmother who was diagnosed with mental illness many years ago, 30 over years ago. So from the day that I knew myself, I knew that I was born into a highly stigmatized family where even among cousins today, we would joke and call ourselves like a mad family or strange family because of the pressure that we were put in. And gila, mad, these are the common words that people would just joke about. But it was always a trigger to me. So then I told myself that, okay, what am I going to do to serve society, to educate communities? So I wanted to start with my own family. And when I got into biotechnology, I got into research, and there was one subject of psychology that we've learned. We had to take that, it's a minor in university, and I felt that, okay, that was a point where I could contribute back to society by educating. I didn't want to fight with anyone, like, hey, why are you saying talking about my grandmother or what? But I wanted to educate them on what to say or what not to say to someone who is experiencing or who is a caregiver, to someone who's, like, my grandmother is out of her mind. She's not a functional person in the sense that she can't remember us. She can't remember. So basically, I grew up with a love, having a grandmother still alive. Touch wood, she's almost 100 years old now, but she doesn't have any function in our life. Like, there's no tender care and love. There's no touch because she was always in her own world. So then, with that pain, I wanted to send a message across to the world that what you need to say, how mindful you need to be to start a conversation with somebody who has been experiencing some kind of mental health issue. Yeah.
So you've gone towards educating people how to deal with people with mental health.
Breaking the stigma,
Breaking
basically.
the stigma.
Yeah.
And there is this movie, It Is Okay Not to Be Okay.
Yes.
So I suppose that's breaking the stigma that people should understand that other people may not be so fortunate to be living a happy life, and they may have issues, in their mind.
Yes.
And how to deal with it. But it requires a lot of empathy in order to deal with people with mental health, and a lot of education and understanding as well, which is not something that everybody has. Like, for example, if a person, I read in one of your blogs, or is it a video that you did, when a person says, I need to go somewhere, or I need to have a break, or when it comes to life, I'm just surviving. Those are all telltale signs of mental health issue. So perhaps you can share with us, how do you respond to even a simple statement like, I need a break, or I'm just surviving. How do you respond to that?
Okay, that's a very nice question. You see, most of the time, whenever we have issues, when we have problems, right, there are two types of people. There are one person who want to find a solution to their problem, but another person would just want to sit in or sink in with that problem. So what happens? They would overthink. They would be worried about whatever that's happening. So the proactive one would seek help in terms of, not professionally yet maybe, but probably talking to a friend about it, open up. They want to open up. They want to share something. But most of the time what happens is, instead of responding, we would very quickly react to the person and say, hey, why do you need to travel? Okay, where are you going? But we don't wait, or we don't allow the other person to share about their dreams. So because why I'm saying this is that when somebody is sharing about their problems, they might not share about their problems yet, because that takes a lot of time, to build rapport, to open up. They are just saying that they want to do certain activities. If that is something that they have been commonly doing, meaning they enjoy going for holiday and all, then that's fine. But this is something that if they want to run away from their problems, or they are living in denial, probably you need to also find out what is the life events. Like, is there a grief? Is there some kind of trauma that they have been experiencing that they want to run away? Sometimes they could just be running away from their problems, you know. So the one thing that you could respond is, okay, tell me more. Tell me what's happening, what's in your head, tell me more. So when you are, instead of suggesting, hey, why not try Langkawi or Pangko, you know, just say, okay, tell me more about your plans. So when you are asking questions like this, you are actually indirectly getting them to open up. So it's not just like an open-ended question or a closed-ended question. You are getting them to open up, to share what is in their mind. You know, most of the time we react to what is in our mind, and we are very quick to judge. We would say, is everything okay? You know, do you need help? No, just let them share, okay, what is happening? What is your plan? So it's always about that person. It's not about us. So that's what I've learned along these years of being a responder, but of course I'm still learning. Sarina.
So you're a responder and you have a company,
Yes.
Drona Wellness, that deals with mental health issues. It deals with even food, how food can change your mental health. It has a whole host of services, and you get calls. You get calls from random people with issues asking for help.
Yes.
Can you share with us about some of these calls that you get?
Okay. Most of the time, I get calls from youngsters who have relationship issues. So you see, we live in a society where, like in schools, we are not educated about how you should be treated in a relationship. So when things go out of hands, when they are unable to understand their partners, especially girls, you know, young girls, they feel they are used. Like they would ask me, is it normal for a guy to ask me for my money? You know, I'm earning and he's not working, he's still studying. Is it okay to give him? So then there's no guideline that these are all red flags of a relationship. And I think across cultures, across religions, right, we were always told that, okay, women, especially girls, we are not allowed to discover men. Like, you know, not with, it's not nice. You know, what society would think about you if you're going with few guys, you're going out with few guys, and then you need to go out with that one guy, and that one guy is someone that you have to marry. So this is what we've been fed, and it's not what is the norm of the society. But what people don't realize is that things have changed. So what I would ask back these girls, even boys who've called me, right, I would ask them back, okay, what do you think it's a normal relationship? So then they would tell me, okay, it needs to have understanding, all this. They know that they have been misused, but they do not have the courage to say no. So again, this boils down to the family dynamics. Are you living with your parents who never says, you know, who's a people pleaser? So when you are a people pleaser, when your kids are looking at you, they would, actually it's a learned behavior, you know, and then they would come back. And sometimes I get calls where girls are crying to me. They said, you know, I know it's wrong to still be in this relationship. What do I do? So then the only thing that I can do as a responder, I cannot solve everyone's problem, but I can educate them and say, okay, why not you follow this person? You see, social media is so rampant these days where people are following celebrities, promoting their movies. I know there's good to it, but there's also good if you're following certain coaches, you know. I'm talking about licensed professionals who are actually sharing coping skills. How do you deal with grief? Even losing a relationship, it could end up with depression if someone is not equipped with the coping skills. So, you know, these are all at this point of this age, I would laugh to it because I have experienced it before. But sometimes I feel that it takes a lot of empathy, like how you said. It takes a lot of patience to just sit and listen to them. I know deep down they already know the answer, that they need to walk out of the relationship. But it takes a lot of courage to do so, to just say no to their the attached partner. I would not say it's their partner, but they are just emotionally attached. So why are they emotionally attached? What happened to their childhood and all, right? So this is something that it's a self-reflection. Only they can answer. But
And I'm surprised because you mentioned that these people who call you are young people, young girls and boys. But the example you've given can happen to people who are older, who are professionals as well. Because I was watching this movie on Netflix. It's actually a documentary on Netflix. It's called Bad Vegan. And I was just so angry just watching 4 episodes. I was just angry watching it because this is beautiful girl, educated, successful, had a restaurant in her name, but she lost all her money to this one guy who kept asking her for it. And it happened to a smart lady who even went to Wharton. So obviously this is a mental health issue, and you mentioned that people with problems like this should follow licensed coaches. How do you become a licensed coach? Like, for example, you started from a biotechnology background, and I suppose that with that knowledge in biotechnology, that set up a base for you to go on to learn about mental health, and it's got to do with chemicals in the brain as well, I would think.
Yes.
So how do you go into this profession of becoming a responder? You mentioned earlier it's from your personal experience as well with your grandmother. But in terms of qualifications, how do you get there?
I had a purpose in life. So what I did was I turned my purpose into a business where I would help people to solve problems, right? But how I started is that when I had my professional degree, which is biotech, and that was under research and development. So what I would do, I would read research papers, I would read journals to know if it's from a reliable source or not. And of course, with the minor that I had in psychology, that actually really attracted me to pursue further. But I never wanted to be a psychologist or psychiatrist, because I never wanted to solve people's problem, or I didn't want to give them medication. So the only thing that I wanted to do, I wanted to build a bridge between the gap of a common person with professionals. So I would categorize myself as a common person. I'm a common man, but I think even our Datuk Shahrukh has said in his movies that don't underestimate the power of a common man. So what I wanted to do, I am in a mission to normalize a help-seeking behavior. So, of course, Drona Wellness, if you've noticed that I actually bring in my team members or professionals who are doctors, because even in my name, there's Dr. Ona, right? So I wanted someone from medical professionals and someone who's licensed, meaning if you are a counselor, you need to be registered with a licensed body. There must be a regulation. So for me, to better equip myself with mental health issues, and talking about mental health, actually many don't know that anyone can talk about mental health. It's just like physical health. We share about our food, our exercise with our friends. The only thing we cannot do is we can't do a diagnosis. So what I do, I always refer that part to my team members. So I have doctors in my team. I have PhD holders who are doctors, who takes a lot of effort to study, to pursue something that they're very passionate about. So I have a handful of people in my team where I act as a bridge. Because like I said, I don't want to medicate them or give them a solution, right? I want that to come from within. So usually when I'm talking to someone, when I'm responding to someone, I would give them options on where they can go to. So because I'm in a mission to normalize the help-seeking behavior, so sometimes I realize some girls or guys, they would just end up going to a spiritual healer. They said, it's okay, Drona, I do not want to, I'm not ready to speak to a doctor. I just go to a spiritual healer who's like just nearby to my house. Then I'll be like, okay, I'm so glad at least you seek help. Then I would always follow up in 2 weeks or so, but of course my certificate came from Australia because I felt that people in Australia, they were more ready to accept people like me who doesn't have like a medical degree or MBBS to be a response trainer. But of course, I had to go through certain regulations and I had to sit for some exams to be known as a mental health response educator. It's not just like doing a certificate and then, because it takes a lot of courage even to talk to people, right? And we live in Malaysia where people don't openly talk about mental health issues. They would just say, okay, what's your qualification? But I realized that 80% of people, according to research, actually talk to their friends and family and friends. Only 20% would seek professional help. So I wanted to make a change in that number because 80% is a huge number. When you're talking to someone, you need to talk to someone who is at least confident to tell you, I think you need to speak to a doctor. I think you need to speak to a professional and not just straight away to a psychiatrist. That would freak them out. So that's why I felt that as a science communicator myself, I wanted to communicate science to a layman because that 80% it's not professional, it's layman. So I wanted to break that barrier to educate people like, okay, what to say, what not to say, what are the resources that's readily available in Malaysia. We have a very good support and there are many NGOs that's fighting that mental health should be human right. So even if for myself, if I have all the signs and symptoms, if I do not want to seek professional help, it is my right. Nobody can stop me because like I said, it's a spectrum, right? It could just be the mild, you're just in that mild spectrum. But again, if you don't put in attention, you don't have that care that you need from your family and friends, then that would accelerate to severe mental health issues. So that's why I strongly believe that there's no health without mental health, but at the same time, you need to realize your own potential. So yeah, coming back.
So mental health being on a spectrum, do you find that it can a simple thing or a simple problem at work, for example, that is recurrent, which can easily be resolved, but that person is perhaps, I don't know, does not have enough, is not strong enough, might think that it is a mental health issue? What I'm saying is that, are we normalizing mental health? I mean, it may sound a bit controversial, but don't you think it can be used by a person to just get out of work, for example? Oh, I have a mental health issue. I need to be away.
Yes.
Are we raising snowflakes especially when we talk to younger people about mental health?
Yes.
Basically, is it being overused, this term of mental health?
Okay. Very interesting question because, if someone who has yes, like you said, it could be misused if they lack knowledge when it comes to mental health. Yeah, because when somebody is having a mental health issues, it needs to be diagnosed. So most of the time what is happening is they undergo a self-diagnosis. So they could just go on internet, because there's so many online resources, right? Sometimes it could be unauthorized, or it's not a reliable source. So what they would do, they would just read the signs and symptoms, and then they'll put it in the head, okay, I think I have anxiety. I think I have chronic stress, or I think I have depression. But like for me, being an educator, I would always ask them back, is this diagnosed? So if organizations do not take effort to educate their staffs on what is mental health, then definitely there might be people who will be misusing it. But countries like New Zealand and Australia, right, there is something called as mental health leave, sick leave, where you do not need to publish your MC, or you do not need to give any reasons. You can just say, okay, I'm on a sick leave, and most of the time it's never misused.
I suppose it is difficult for HR to be looking at this from the perspective of assisting that person to overcome whatever problems that he has mentally. So how do you balance this out?
Yes. I think it really requires a holistic approach, like how you said, you're coming from an employer point of view, and I meet people who are employees. About what I personally experienced, right? There are few companies, like especially in the manufacturing side, they would have mindfulness programs for their staffs. They said, okay, I don't want mental health response, but can you come in and do a mindfulness program? So then when they see their employees being more mindful, meaning their occupational wellness are also being fulfilled and they're happy, so they would just go on with that program. So there are another employers who would say, okay, can you come in and do a mental health response, meaning to teach my staff, where do they go to? Because HR is often overloaded, with a lot of issues and all. So can you train them to say, okay, where do I go? Where do I seek help? So it has a lot of win-win situation where there was an instance in one organization where I conducted this mental health response program, and then the HR actually sent out invites to all their staffs. So what I realized as a trainer, as an educator, is that people who have experience, or they could resonate with, okay, like there was one participant who lost a friend due to suicide. And she came up to me all teary. She said, Drona, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to respond to him when he was telling me that he was in the verge of suiciding. I said, why didn't you call the police? If you know where he lives, you can just call 999 and the police would just go into, that's the right of a police, they can do that. And she said, no, I didn't know what to do. That's why I'm here.
So from the HR perspective, from what you've told me, it would be more about life skills, about social skills.
Yes.
Addressing and identifying a mental health problem when you see it. There is this statistic which says there are one out of 3 people suffer from mental health issues.
Yes.
And almost everyone has had a mental health experience.
Yes.
What is the difference between, mental health issues, we know, but a mental health experience, what is that?
Okay, it could be they were a caregiver, just like me, right? I had a mental health experience with my grandmother. But of course, do I have a mental health issue? That's another question, because there are 3 risk factors that contributes to mental health issues. It could be genetic, it could be psychological, or it could be environmental. So knowing that I have that experience, what I am doing is I'm being proactive, and I'm telling myself, okay, Drona, you need to buck up on your exercise, your food, you need to know how to relax, your coping skills, because I have that education, I have the awareness. But there are many who have experience, and then because they have seen someone experiencing it, they would be they would sink into the problem, and they would say, okay, this person is having it. Could I be also having such issue? So what is going to happen when you're not proactive, when you don't look after yourself, when you don't exercise, when you don't eat well, then you could be absorbed in that mental health issue, and then eventually the issue becomes an illness. So
Yeah, exercise and food. That's
Yes.
interesting.
yes, something that's have been
Wow. Yeah.
abused. Food has been abused, and exercise has been underused actually when it comes to mental health.
It's interesting when you mention that you need to know what goes into your food. Like for
Yes.
example, last weekend I was looking for some chapatis, not at the restaurant but at the supermarket, because I thought, oh, let me just get some chapatis to make it easy for me to just whip up an easy meal. Because chapati is supposed to be healthy.
Yes.
But when I was looking at the ingredients, they had margarine in it.
Yes.
So I was like, oh no, I'm not going to take this because I'm not going to have margarine. So yeah, it is very important to know what you're eating. But I'm surprised that it affects the mental health as well. This is something really new, because I've always thought of food as to keep your physical health, something
Yes.
to take care of your physical health. And exercise as well. You were mentioning exercise helps with mental health.
Yes.
More
Because-
exercise, I suppose.
Yes.
What chemicals does it release to?
Yes, I
help
think
one?
the exercise, it could be a simple exercise as walking, and we all know that you need to exercise. WHO has a recommendation as well, 150 minutes per week. And sugar is just 6 grams of sugar, 25 grams of sugar, approximately about 6 teaspoons of sugar per day for adults. But if you're going to eat outside, you don't know how much of sugar is in your food, right? You leave aside the beverage, the drinks, but the food that you're consuming. So when it comes to exercise, it could building muscle means that it's directly related to your health, your anti-aging. But the problem is that people don't do what they know. They always want quick fixes. Like if somebody is having a mental health issue, when I refer them to a therapist, and the therapist will say, okay, can you cut your no fried food? You need to exercise, you need to move more, and they'd be like, what is it related? But all this is actually a holistic approach to your health. Mental health is not only about the mind, it's more than that.
You mentioned there is no health without mental health. I found that's very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you see, people think that, okay, I just need to do some crossword puzzles or some Sudoku just to build resilience. But when you are playing a sport, or when you are exercising in the gym, that 1 minute could be a torture. You'll be like, when is this finishing? Because if you're a person who's frequently exercising, then when you're releasing the happy hormones like dopamine and all, you will enjoy it. You say, okay, I need to go back. So that becomes a healthy coping skills. But very often we do not want to exercise. We do not want to eat healthy. We feel that, okay, life is short. Let me just enjoy with whatever that I want to do. But when the disease strikes in, that's when they would want to make a change. Sometimes it could be a little bit too late. But what I would always advocate for is that just move. Get a watch that can show your steps, at least 10K steps per day. If you can't do 10K, it's fine. At least 5K. You don't have to be like slim or trim. You just need to be healthy here. Your positive thinking, looking at things at a brighter side, building resilience. Okay, today I fell. It was painful, but how can I bounce back stronger? So these are the things that a mentally fit person would do. But most of the time, we would resolve to anger, You know, when there's disappointment, there's a lot of crying that's involved. There's a lot of, you know, you tend to abuse people with words. So these are the things that you need to be a little bit mindful, not for anyone else, but it's also for your own mental health, you know, because when you change your words, it changes your world. When you're using a kinder word to outside people, like if you're an employer, right? You're using it towards your employee, but you're not using that kind word to your own self, then you're not being fair to yourself. So that's why I would always advocate that, you know, use kinder words to yourself. Like 13, everyone knows 14 February is Valentine's Day. You know, everyone would be ready to get their partner something. But many didn't know that 13th February is actually an International Self-Love Day. So they don't prioritize themselves. It's always like, as a mother, I used to put my kids forward, my family forward. But there was one point in life where I said, no, if I'm sick, only I can look after myself. My kids can't help me and they will be totally helpless. So I said, no, I need to look after myself. So 5:30 to 6:30 is my routine, my exercise time. I would lock the door and I'll tell my boys that, okay, this is a time that I need for myself. So they respect that. And of course, I have a very heavy price to pay as well, because when there are days that I don't exercise, they would come back to me and say, Mom, I think you've been losing your workout, you know. Hey, your coach is getting stronger and you are getting weaker, you know. So I get these things. But I think ultimately, people need to feel their emotions. It's okay to get angry, but how do you get angry? It's okay to feel disappointed, you know, all the positive or negative emotions. But how do you do it? When do you do it? And then when there are days that you're so confused, it's okay. Just, you know, I always tell my participants as well in my training that get a SOS number of a therapist or a counselor or a doctor where you can just call. Could be a free consultation, but you need to have someone that you can speak to. Do not self-sabotage by talking to the wrong person, because they could be giving you a wrong information.
Yes, I think people need to know this, yeah? Self-sabotage.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier that some people, they prefer to go to like a spiritual healer.
It's not wrong.
It's not wrong, but does that spiritual healer have the expertise to tackle that problem that, you know, the person is having?
Yes.
Kids, you have experience helping children deal with mental health as well. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, so my best friend, my BFF, is a pediatrician. So she sees a lot of number of kids, you know, from 5 years, because kids as young as 5 years old, they have developed mental health.
5 years old?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Mental health, they are
at 5.
developing their personality.
All right. So you mentioned earlier, sorry to interrupt, you mentioned earlier that mental health can stem from hereditary, psychological, or environment.
Yes.
So at 5 years old,
they have something called as mental health.
Right.
They know, okay, personality. They know they can feel angry. They can feel this negative and positive emotions. And I think as young as 2 years old, they have tantrums. You know, they say the terrible two. Yeah. So all this is a developmental issues. So if it's not taken care well, when parents do not share positive words like "I love you," "You are so good," you know, it's okay to make mistakes. You know, are you okay if they are falling? And you know, typical Asian parents will be like, "Huh, I told you." You know, you need to be more careful. So these are the words that needs to go. When somebody is falling, you need to show compassion, right? You can just ask, "Are you okay?"
Talking about psychologists, there are lots of psychologists now, especially at universities. And I find more young people, after their Form 6, A-levels or after school, they decide to go into psychology as a major. So I suppose this area of mental health and related areas to mental well-being is getting more and more popular. But that's something we can talk about on another day. Perhaps you can come back again for another podcast to talk about psychology, to talk about psychiatry, because you have all these people in your team and you train a lot of people from the corporate world, individuals as well. So I'm excited to explore more into that at another Ask the Boss podcast.
Yes, sure.
But for now, thank you so much for being with us today. I certainly am so happy that we have shared, this subject about mental health amongst the audience of Ask the Boss, because it is something that is not really talked about. And as you said, we should normalize talking about mental health, especially if 1 in 3 have some mental health issues. So thank you, Drona. Thank you for being here with us.
Thanks, Sarina, for having me again. It's indeed a pleasure. So I really hope that whoever who's listening would actually embark on a mission to normalize a help-seeking behavior.